Welcome back to Second Breakfast, and we're doing something a little different today. Instead of our normal discussion episode, I'm going to be reading you a column that I've written for the show. I've been doing these over on our Substack as our exclusive bonus episodes over there, at least one a month lately. I think I did 2 last month. And these are pre-written and all thought-out ideas about a work of art that we loved that has affected Maggie or myself in the past couple weeks. And this time we're talking about a movie called Inside. And this column it's really about one of the artistic staples of my life. A reliable, surprising, magnetic good luck charm in whatever movie he shows up in, whether it's Spider-Man when I was a kid, The Lighthouse much later, The Northman, John Wick, Finding Nemo, American Psycho, Antichrist, even when he shows up in strange or unexpected places like The Fault in Our Stars or the Cirque du Freak movie or Aquaman. He's always delightful, thoughtful, memorable. This column is about a movie, but I think it's really about Willem Dafoe. So before I jump into it, if you want to hear more of these columns and support the show, we're over on Substack. You can support us there to get every episode, every bonus episode, all of it straight to your email the second it goes live. And thank you for listening. This is a little different. I'm really enjoying writing these, so let's jump into it. The response has been really encouraging so far. And another thing before I jump into it is that this Friday we'll be back with a normal, full-length, about an hour discussion episode with Tristan. Wonderfully, he's back, and we're going to be talking about the Diablo IV open beta that he and I got to play. Maggie's there, sort of in the sidecar to guide the discussion, and that one was really fun. That felt like an episode we've been building to in our friendship communally for about a decade. I'm really, really happy with that episode. So come back on Friday and listen to that one, and I hope you enjoyed this column about Inside, starring Willem Dafoe. Even though I eagerly anticipated Willem Dafoe's Inside for months, I did not enjoy the film while I was watching it. The premise was electric. An art thief gets stuck in a penthouse full of priceless art. I don't know if it was this premise, the title, the poster, or the first 10 minutes of screen time, but I thought this was going to be a heist movie, a tense and spiraling puzzle box full of secrets and surprises, an art house rendition of Saw, a kaleidoscope of thematic traps. But instead, I caught myself feeling restless throughout the movie's hour and 45-minute runtime. It's been almost a month now since I saw it, and I still feel frustrated that the film didn't go further. The meditations about the art world were gestures and hints, not challenging revelation. Nemo's history as an artist and quest to escape the penthouse were fascinating, and even though they're both technically resolved by the time the credits roll, I didn't feel satisfied. Nothing about the story ever truly clicked into place or blew me away. There wasn't a final puzzle piece that made the whole journey worth it, or some wild left turn that flipped the story on its head. Inside feels like one of those wild writing days where the craft is there, and you blow through 20 pages in a few hours, but then you realize a couple days later that you were just putting words down. The ideas weren't there. The lightning bolts weren't firing. You just kept the scene going too long. In some sense, this might be intentional. Inside becomes an experience more than it is a straightforward story, and recreating Nemo's claustrophobia and restlessness within the audience is certainly a compelling accomplishment. But the longer I sat in that persistent tension and expectation, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the world to end, waiting to get out and see the world, I realized that this might be the only good piece of art about the COVID era. With the possible exception of Ty West and Mia Goth's Pearl, which we covered in a Substack-exclusive bonus episode a few months ago, most art about this unique moment has been straight commentary or eulogy for the time that we all lost. But Inside recreates the tension and trauma of lockdown. It locks us in a room and stages that terrible experience all over again, brick by brick, until the likeness becomes almost unbearable. To take things a step further, this sort of total isolation and introspective spelunking also makes up the majority of an artist's life. Of course, I'm saying all this into a microphone alone in an empty room and firing it out into the yawning void of cyberspace, so maybe the existential malaise of this film was a little uncomfortably familiar for me. But it does capture something searingly genuine. So if I look beyond my skewed expectations about this movie and reflect on what it actually was instead of what I thought it might be or wanted it to be, well, then we start to get somewhere. I have thought about Inside every few days since I left the theater. As I said earlier, I thought this was going to be Saw, but it had much more in common with Skinamarink. Maggie and I covered that film too in an unorthodox sort of episode a few months ago. It was difficult, distant, and similarly frustrating. Of course, I found Skinamarink much more interesting to think about than to actually watch, and that's not an insult. Most of my favorite works of art are niche, uneven, divisive, commercially inadvisable curveballs. And I have felt Inside falling into that same strange region of my mind, where I think of it much more fondly as time passes, and I stop comparing it to more traditional stories. I'm not writing this piece as a straightforward recommendation, and I have no real urge to rewatch the movie, but there's definitely something to talk about here. First of all, and I apologize for this not being the first sentence I wrote about the film, Willem Dafoe is incredible. This is one of the most complete performances I have ever seen. His physicality is unbelievable. Willem Dafoe is 67 years old, and you can tell that he spent every day of that time learning and honing his craft. There is such a mastery of communication in his movement. Facial expressions, body language, every groan and mumble is perfectly tuned. You almost don't notice that a role like this would require all of those decades of work and experience. He's the only performer on screen for almost the entire film, and he has almost no dialogue to hide behind. Inside is a staring contest, a close reading, a one-man band playing to a packed stadium in his underwear. Most of the human beings who have ever lived would shrink from that sort of blazing spotlight, but Dafoe flourishes. He climbs up the walls, hides under the bed, piles himself under blankets, and strips down to nothing. He aches with regret, spirals into anarchy, pleads for his life, finds inner peace, and loses his mind. He is towering in this role, displaying such a total range of human feeling that the sprawling penthouse starts to feel cramped around him. I rewatched Amadeus a few weeks ago, and it is within that context that I'm tempted to call Inside an operatic film. The opera scenes in Amadeus are dazzling for their spectacle, the swell of the orchestra, the extravagance of the costumes. I couldn't tell you what's actually happening in any of those scenes, with the possible exception of Don Giovanni, but that's probably just my Faustus obsession filling in the gaps. There is a fundamental element missing from my experience during the opera scenes, but I still find the experience of watching them to be incredibly powerful. This is exactly how I feel about Inside, but I would like to go a step further. I'm finally talking about this work of art because I think I finally understand it. Inside is not an opera, a heist movie, or really even a movie at all. It is the quintessential black box theater experience, a rigorous experiment in form and structure. These productions are usually defined by their simultaneous scrappiness and passion. One set, minimal decoration, very few cast members, almost no budget at all, but astounding vision. I've been to the Globe, I've sat in the front row at Broadway shows, but I will never forget the black box production of Martin McDonagh's The Pillow Man that I saw in college. It's a singular format for artistic expression. Everything in the world fades away. There's nowhere to hide in a black box. Every single variable is controlled, except for performance. The audience has to use their imagination and fill in the gaps, but if the writing or the acting are strong enough, then it doesn't just work. It can actively transport you into a realm of total focus and creative ingestion. The performances I saw that day are seared into my mind, as Willem Dafoe's now is too. I've been watching and admiring him my entire life, but this was different. I don't remember the movie, I remember him, as if he's someone I used to know. His mannerisms, his quirks, his vulnerabilities. It wasn't just that I saw him up there on the screen, I watched him like you would a friend that you're worried about. And as for his tragically beautiful prison cell, I can map out that penthouse in my head like it's my childhood home. I lived in it for almost 2 hours and searched through its every closet and drawer for a way out. I know the chimes of the appliances and the weight of the furniture. This story isn't just about its central character. I believe that the title of the film also refers to its interrogation of setting, and that combination is what makes it so hypnotic and immersive. I've seen plays and one-person shows at black box theaters, sometimes for free, sometimes with only a few people in the audience, and those details never matter. If the performer believes in the work and truly gives themselves to that passion, the results can be staggering. Artistic vision is about faith and risk, a total suspension of self-consciousness and humility. If you pull a punch or falter, the whole thing comes tumbling down. But if you can stay locked in that groove, then you are untouchable. Artistic vision cannot be bought or imitated or mistaken. And when I think back on Inside, I see myself sitting in a movie theater, seemingly alone in that large black box, marveling at one larger-than-life performer showing me something that I have never seen before. No, this wasn't an idyllic ensemble Shakespearean theater experience like The Banshees of Inisherin, but Inside is a work of staggering hunger. It's a passion project, an ashcan indie comic, a bottle episode of TV, an experimental short story, an early EP from your favorite band. There's one set, one character, and one problem to solve. Nothing else exists. And the spell that Willem Dafoe casts within those strict limitations is transcendent. His age doesn't matter. The ending doesn't matter. The premise doesn't matter. The tagline for this film calls it a solitary exhibition, and I think that would have been a much better title. Inside is a showcase for one of our greatest living actors, a series of bowling pins for him to annihilate, a meal for him to devour, and his performance is unforgettable. It is personal and profound, desperate and delirious, grounded and gargantuan. I am thrilled that this movie was made, and grateful that I got to see it in a theater, inside that black box, where it could briefly become my entire world. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here on Friday for a brand new episode.